Hi, I'm Grant Curlow. I'm the beer specialist for World Class Beverages. I'm a recent graduate from Johnson Wales University out in Providence, Rhode Island. Out there I had studied food service management, culinary arts, and got a beverage concentration. We're starting with this Beer U module. I hope you really enjoy it. It's all about beer and food. It's a very big integral part of my life and a big passion of mine. So enjoy and cheers.
When prepping and serving cheeses, there are a few helpful tips that will optimize flavor and enhance the overall tasting experience. First, be sure to serve the cheeses at room temperature or slightly below. Much like butter, the fat compounds in cheese harden and stiffen when cold. Therefore, as the cheese warms up, the flavors and odor compounds are more easily released into the air and soften at room temperature. However, be careful to make sure the cheese does not become too warm, such as exceeding 80 degrees Fahrenheit, because the fats in the cheese will sweat out and in some cases begin to melt. Secondly, properly serving cheese, or any type of food for that matter, requires proper cutlery and serving utensils. The French have a phrase called mise en place, which translates to everything in its place. Having a proper cheese knife and wooden cutting board is a relatively small investment and easy to maintain and clean. Don't forget to keep the blades sharpened by using a steel in the kitchen, as to ensure no fingers are sliced off and scare away any guests at the party. When storing cheese, keep the cheese wrapped in wax paper and place it in a loose-fitting food bag so as to not lose humidity and maintain the circulation of air. Also, do not store cheese with other strong-smelling foods. As the cheese breathes, it will absorb other aromas and may spoil. Although many great artisanal cheeses are perfectly fine on their own, some cheeses can benefit from some accompaniments. Also, it's worth mentioning that serving some accompaniments should help to not tire the palate and also provide some more substance while drinking beer. When choosing breads to go with cheese, first consider the flavor intensities of the cheeses. For instance, when it comes to triple cremes and other mild cheeses, a baguette serves perfectly well because of its neutral flavorings and texture contrast it offers. Blue cheese, on the other hand, pairs classically well with a raisin walnut bread. The crunchy nuts and sweet raisins balances so well with the salty and pungent blue cheese. There are countless varieties of jams and chutneys that are usually available at cheese shops and farmers markets everywhere. Picking out the right one can sometimes be difficult, especially when being served with numerous types of cheeses. However, one of the most classic is called Membrio or quince paste. Membrio is quite sweet and balances out salty cheeses as well as intense dry and crumbly cheese. Alongside jams and chutneys, honey can work in a similar fashion to balance out salty cheeses. Grapes are probably considered to be the most widely used fruit alongside a cheese platter. However, many other high pectin fruits go well with the cheese platter as well. Try ripe figs, peaches, pears, or even dates to go along with the cheeses. Vegetables are another accompaniment that goes well with some cheeses. Think of all the different vegetables available and the different preparations they can be made in: raw, steamed, blanched, pickled, pureed, and the list goes on. Nuts and cheese are a match made in heaven. Next time you pair a blue cheese with a barley wine, try the addition of some walnuts. It truly brings the pairing to a whole new dimension. By now, the cheese platter is probably looking quite full, but there's always some room for artisanal cured meats. Italian prosciutto, salami, chorizo, Virginia ham, and so many others can pair extremely well with cheeses. Not to mention, the addition of protein and the other accompaniments can round out the cheese tasting and really turn this into a full meal itself. Goat cheese, also called chèvre from the French word for goat, is cheese made from goat's milk. Cow's milk and goat's milk have similar overall fat contents, but goat's milk has a higher proportion of medium-chain fatty acids that leads to a more tart flavor. These cheeses can also be quite buttery on the palate with some acidity and tanginess in the taste. Greek feta and traditional German Hefeweizens are a classic pairing. The more pungent and full of character the cheese, the more complex and full character you'll need in your beer. More pungent and flavorful goat cheeses, such as an aged ash-ripened goat cheese, may even pair well with a Belgian strong golden ale. Matching intensities with both the goat's cheeses and wheat-based beers should lead to a nice pairing and is a great way to entertain guests who are not the most experienced craft beer drinkers nor cheese gurus. What does matching intensities mean? When we talk about matching intensities, we're talking about pairing strong cheeses with heavier beers or lighter cheeses with more mellow beers. Consider the intensity of the flavors in both the cheese and the beers when making a pairing choice, and try to keep one from overwhelming the other. Blue cheese is a general classification of cow's milk, sheep's milk, or goat's milk cheeses that have had the cultures of the mold Penicillium added. This process lends the final stage of the cheese to being spotted or veined throughout with a bluish mold. Generally speaking, characteristics of blue cheeses are sharp and a tad salty. Other classic flavors and aroma characteristics are stinky feet, body odor, and a general funkiness smell. This might not sound too appealing, but rest assured, some of these cheeses are the most sought after. In the wine world, Stilton cheese, walnuts, and an aged port is a classic and magical pairing. The same holds true in the craft beer world when switching out the aged port for a sweet and malty barley wine. Both barley wines and port share many of the same characteristics, as they both tend to be full-bodied, high in alcohol, and have flavor characteristics that are quite sweet on the palate. All of this balances so well with the salty and stinky blue cheeses. Another pairing tip is the seesaw effect. Generally speaking, a sweeter blue cheese pairs well with a more bitter barley wine, such as an American barley wine, whereas a bitter blue cheese pairs well with a sweeter barley wine, such as an English barley wine. Overall, there are a vast number of different blue cheeses being made worldwide, and all have their own distinct aromas and flavors. What is the seesaw effect? When we talk about seesaw, we're talking about pairing contrasting flavors. Generally speaking, a sweeter blue cheese pairs well with a more bitter barley wine, such as an American barley wine, whereas a bitter blue cheese pairs well with a sweeter barley wine, such as an English barley wine. In general, pairing contrasting flavors in the beer world often means pairing sweet food flavors with bitter beers or bitter foods with sweeter beers. It's a concept that can work in all areas of food pairings, not just beer and cheese. Without any surprise, Swiss cheese originated in Switzerland with the classic Swiss Emmental cheese. Emmental, along with many other types of Swiss-like made cheese, can actually have holes in the cheese known as eyes. During fermentation, these cheeses go through inconsistent pressing, which can result in the CO2 not having a place to escape. Thus, the CO2 creates holes in the cheese. Today, some modern cheesemakers try to avoid these eyes, but traditional Swiss cheesemakers have kept the long-standing tradition alive. Baby Swiss is a U.S.-made Swiss cheese that have very small holes and a mild flavor that comes from whole milk. Sweet malty beers, such as Box and Doppelbock, tend to pair quite well with nutty Swiss cheeses. The nutty flavored Swiss cheeses is a match made in heaven with sweet, caramelly, sometimes even toffee-ish box-style beers. Try to stick to matching the intensities with the Swiss cheeses and malty beers. Another style of beer to seek out are the Belgian-style saisons and bière de garde. What is the mirror image effect? When we talk about mirror image, we're talking about pairing similar flavors. Generally speaking, a nutty Swiss cheese pairs well with a maltier beer, such as a Bock beer, because of the similar nature of the flavors. In general, pairing similar flavors in the beer world often means pairing sweet food flavors with sweet beers. It's another concept that can work in all areas of food pairings, not just beer and cheese. There are 4 Italian-based cheeses that are most often used for grating: Asiago, Grana Padano, Parmigiano Reggiano, and Pecorino Romano. All 4 of these cheeses have been made for centuries and are all made from cow's milk. These cheeses tend to have a strong nutty flavor, with sometimes being intense in flavor and have a crumbly, dry texture. Another component of grating cheeses is their high salt content. So going back to the seesaw effect, a sweet malty beer should do a nice job with balancing out the saltiness of these cheeses. Along with Swiss cheeses, these grating cheeses tend to pair well with dark malty beers such as German-style Doppelbocks and Belgian-style doubles. Another style of beer to pair with grating cheeses are amber lagers. Amber lagers are sometimes considered to be the Goldilocks of beer styles for their unique balance of hot bitterness to toasty, culty maltiness. Amber lagers go well with Asiago and Pecorino Romano for their more creamy finish compared to Parmesan. Fresh, soft cheeses such as mascarpone, ricotta, triple creme, or even a fresh goat cheese are closer to what we think of cream rather than cheese. These cheeses are normally very young cheese and are so soft they can typically be served with a spoon. These creamy, milky, and mild cheeses go well with a number of different styles of beer, but two that can make for a pleasurable and fun experience are stouts and fruit beers. Stouts, and even imperial stouts, pair quite well with triple creme cheeses that can create a dessert-like combo, such as a flourless chocolate torte with a sweet whipped cream. Mascarpone and ricotta can pair beautifully well with fruit-forward beers, such as sweet lambics or American fruity ales. Cheddar cheese originated in the village of Cheddar in Somerset, England. The village contains a number of caves which provides the ideal humidity and constant temperature for maturing the cheese. Today, America is also a major producer of cheddar, and it happens to be the second top-selling style of cheese in the country, the first being mozzarella. Traditional aged cheddars have flavor characteristics that can be described as having a complex nuttiness, sharp acidity, and a balanced fruitiness. English pale ales and India pale ales tend to have a sharp bitterness along with some fruity tones, especially American pale ales, and biscuity malt that can pair well with cheddars. In this case, the cheese and beer are matching similar flavor profiles to each other. The famous and traditional British ploughman's lunch that usually includes some cheddar cheese pairs extremely well with mildly hopped English-style ales, including the pale ales and India pale ales previously mentioned. American stouts and porters with sweet chocolatey malt and some citrusy hop bitterness also pair extremely well with aged cheddars. To review, please remember these pairing concepts. The first, matching intensities. The second, the seesaw effect. And lastly, the mirror image effect. Here's a very simple beer-cheese pairing chart based on the beers and cheeses we talked about in this presentation. You can find a printable version of it along with the slide handouts attached to this presentation. Just click on the paperclip icon at the bottom of the screen.